Hello everyone, this is Satyaprakash. Welcome to my channel. This is part 11 of Web API. In this video, we'll discuss how to implement delete method in ASP.NET Web API and how to perform the delete action using Fiddler as well as Swagger UI. So before going through this video, please visit my part 10 of Web API, that is how to manage HTTP status code in ASP.NET Web API for HTTP GET and POST method. You can get this video in my playlist called ASP.NET Web API tutorial. So let's go to my Visual Studio. Here I will implement the delete method. So guys, what I'll do here is I want to delete the specified employee from the employee date tables. Right here, this table I have mentioned over my videos, and this table I have used for post operation, get operation, and in this video I'll use this video for delete operation or method. So here what I'll do here is I'll include the delete method in employee controller. So what the code is public and void is a return type, and delete is the method, and we have to pass the parameter id is int id. So based on that, we'll delete the specific employee details from the database. And here what I'll do is next is I will call the entities, that is the SatyaDB entities here. Okay, SatyaDB entities, and entities equal to new SatyaDB entities. So this is nothing but it will make the connection to the SQL Server using our connection string. And the next is here I'll mention few line of code for performing the delete operation. So using this object, that is entities dot which is the object is employee dates, right? And we'll use here one extension method called remove, and here we need to pass the parameter value, that is the entities dot employee dates dot first or default extension method, and here we'll mention the id, that is e, such that e dot id equal to id, right? So far this will remove the first element of a sequence, and after then what I'll do here is entities and save changes. Okay, entities is entities dot save changes, and here what I'll do is close the semicolon and save these changes. And here is one green web mark is coming because I need to mention the XML comments for that specific method. So I have used this one, that is delete a employee record, right? Delete a employee record based on id. Okay, and here is I need to mention here employee id. Okay, so that the XML comments is done. After then what I'll do, I'll save these changes, build my solution. So guys, here you can see build is succeeded, and next is I need to run my application. So guys, here I will map to API and my employees. And I'll copy this URL and go to Fiddler to perform the delete action, and I need to remove all these things and select here as delete, right? And here I'll pass one ID value. So from the database I want to delete the ID of 21. I want to delete this employee ID 21. So I'll go to Fiddler and move put on slash and pick on that 21 employee ID. After then I will execute that method, right? After then I'll go to here and you can see 1204 status code is returning. So I'll go to, after click on that link, and you can see in the response header I am getting 204 no content. So it means the ID of 21 is deleted successfully. I'll go to my SQL Server, refresh this, and here we can see that ID of 21 is deleted from our database successfully. So I'll check whether the ID of invalid ID which is not present. So invalid ID is 212, which is not present in our database. So here I'll execute that. So you can see value cannot be null, or value is not there. So I just continue with that and go to here, and you can see 1500 internal server is coming, right? And you can see 500 internal server error. That means some exception is found. That means that 212 ID is not there in our database. That's what we are getting here. That is 500 internal server error status code in our response header. So guys, here our aim is this code delete the employees only when the ID of employee you want to delete exists. If the ID does not exist, it will return 500 internal server error. Point number 2 is when the deletion is successful, since the method type is method return type is void, so we get the status code 204 no content, but we should be returning status code 200 OK, right? And point number 3 is if the ID of the employee that we want to delete does not exist, so there is an exception, and as a result of it, Web API return the status code 500 internal server error, which I already have shown you. And if an item is not found, then we should be returning status code 404 no not found. So to fix all these problems, we need to modify the code of delete method here to modify our status code based on the operation in the delete method. So I already have that code here. Copy this code, and I'll stop my debugging here, right? And here I need to put my this code modified code here. So this is the code that is the based on our requirements. If the item is deleted successfully, we'll get 200 OK, and if the ID is does not found, then we'll get the status code 404 not found, right? So this code is for 404 not found, and this code is for 200 OK. So I'll tell you about the code. So return type is HTTP response message, and the ID is int ID is the parameter we need to pass. So this line of code is connection to DB, and I have assigned this value whichever the user have mentioned the ID value, it will be assigned to the variable entity. If entity is null, then we'll get the status code is 404 not found, along with the message is employee with ID, that ID is not found to delete in our DB. If the entity is there, not null or else, then entities.employee.dates remove entity. That means it will delete the employee data from our database, and entities.save changes, and I will get the status code is 200. Okay, that means employee data deletion is successful. If we'll get any exception, alright, so that will be go to this line of catch block. So it will get the http status code dot bad request. It is nothing but 400 status code. So I'll tell you, right click on it, go to definition. So you can see for internal server error or an exception is found, then we'll get the 400 status code. Alright, so after these changes, what I will do is save these changes, build my solution, so you can see guys, build is succeeded. After then I will run my application. Okay, now I will map to the Swagger. So here I'll type here Swagger and click enter. So you can see employee controller, expand this one. I can see the delete method with ID, and the XML comments is delete employee record based on ID. Right here I have mentioned this XML comments, and the parameter name description I can see here the employee ID. Right, so I want to delete the specific ID of employee, so I'll check here. So I want to delete the ID of 19, employee ID, so that I'll go to here, I'll delete here employee ID is 19. So click here, try it out. So guys, here I can see response code is 200, and I can see here I'll go to the SQL Server, execute this whether it deleted or not. So you can see employee ID of 19 is deleted successfully, right? So I'll check here one invalid ID which is not present, so 191, try it out. So I can see here response body is message I got employee with ID 191 not found to delete. I got the response code is 404, right? And as with I will check the same response using Fiddler. So here what I'll do is I want to delete the ID of 18, so I'll go to here, mention here ID of 18 and execute, and I can see 200 status code, right? And okay, so okay, and this one, yeah, you can see one response in the response header. I got the response is 200. Okay, all right, so that is the expected result which we have mentioned in our code. So if I'll go to SQL Server and execute the line of select statement, I can see employee ID of 18 is deleted successfully from our DB. So I'll check here the invalid ID, that is 180, and I'll execute. Before execute, I'll remove the unnecessary URLs here. Okay, I'll execute this one, and I can see one red mark is 404 status code, that is the ID is not found, and I can see response header is 404 not found status code, and in the JSON I got the response message is employee ID with ID equal to 180 not found to delete. Alright, so that's all about how to delete the employee record from our SQL Server database along with the proper response code. For delete this, for a invalid ID, and after deletion successful we should get the response code is 200 OK. And if the ID is not found in our DB, then we will get the response code is 404 not found. So that's all about. I'll go to my presentation here. So how to delete a record from SQL Server using delete method and working on a status code for delete method. So status code for delete method is when the deletion is successful, then the status code should be 200 OK instead of 204 no content. And when the ID of the employee that we want to delete it does not exist, then status code should be 404 not found instead of 500 internal server error. So what we have learned today in this video is how to delete or remove a record from SQL Server database using delete method in ASP.NET Web API, and how to configure status code for invalid ID and for the after deletion of employee ID from the database successfully. And for valid ID after deletion, we'll get the response code 200 OK. And if the ID does not exist, then we will get the response code 404 not found. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.